We're on.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live coaching call with Nito Marketing. Today we've got Qasim on. He and I are going to talk about the parent avatar and do some workshopping, right?
That's right. Yeah, which I'm really excited about. This is one of my favorite topics of all time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it's been, kind of like a month-long journey. Typically, we want to try to put him back to back, but of course we had Thanksgiving and then we had Matt join. So it's been a little bit longer than we like. But so just to recap, we had Kim Snyder from Chesterfield Montessori School. She opened up Parent Avatar and gave a really nice introduction to like why it's really important to have this, and in conjunction with your story brand, of course, having those two together really brings it forward in your marketing. And then we had Steven a couple weeks ago really bring through, the details, the best practices, how we can start to identify our parent avatar. He was taking it from marketing to Montessori, because again, there's that not all marketing practices are going to work for Montessori schools. So he did a really nice job of bridging that and bringing it home for us. And so today what we're going to do is really dive into how important this is, what we can do to support you. And then, if you're here live, make sure, if you want us to take a look at what you've got right now, we're happy to workshop it with you. I know sometimes it can be a little bit scary to throw that out there and have us, work with it. But really it's to benefit you as you go along in this journey.
Absolutely. And I think that you would be doing our entire community a service too, because if we were able to workshop with somebody, it gives us the opportunity to kind of really see what the problems are instead of making them up ourselves. That's a great intro. I feel like the avatar is one of the things that gets the most amount of lip service in the marketing world. Because you go in and you have the conversation, you're like, oh, okay, well, who's our target demographic? And then we say, well, parents with children ages, 3 to 5. And then you move on, and it's such a catastrophic error, because we really need to work to understand who it is that we're selling to. And the point of the avatar, and I know this has already been discussed a little bit, but I just want to hit it again. It's not your target demographic, because your target demographic is this great big bubble of people, which kind of encompasses everybody. Your avatar is your idealized family. And I realize that no single family is ideal, and that's kind of the point, right? But we want to find the ideal mission appropriate family. And we want to kind of paint a picture that's so clear that you could kind of name them and then share it with everybody in your organization. So all of your guides should know who this is. Your admissions director should know who this is. Anybody who engages with parents from a lead perspective should know who this is, because now you're giving them the opportunity to adjust their narrative and the way they talk and the things that they do to and for this family. I'm curious, Deneen, because you spent so much time in the classroom. Who, if you were to define who you think the ideal family is based off of the experience that you had, talk to me about who that is. Like what do they think? What do they do? Where do they go? What do they look like?
Yeah. Well, so I was in elementary, and I do feel like it's a bit different than if you're talking about, a family with a 3-year-old.
Right.
But for elementary families, the ideal family that came in was someone who was not wanting results right away, because testing is a huge thing when it comes to school age children. They wanted something different. They wanted their child to be, pushed in a way that made sense for them, not like a set curriculum. So that was really big for them. But also that they were willing to question what I was doing, and they were active in coming into the classroom. So, that's a lot of stuff all in one, and I'm sure we could probably break it down to the details, but the most successful parents in my classroom were the ones that were interested in what I was doing, asked a billion questions, and I was able to answer them in multiple ways: email, side conversations, extra meetings, but have them also come into the classroom. So they were in there, they were seeing the magic happen, because how often do we talk about all of it? And then to actually see it and experience it just makes it so much different. And you need to get your parents in there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I bet, those were the most successful parents in my classroom, and the ones that really understood what I was doing. And then once that was all done, then they trusted more of the process because they understood it.
I love that. So I'm going to do a quick exercise, and we're going to see whether or not it's valuable, since this is us workshopping. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to do something called the 5 whys. And I think this comes from the Lean Startup. But everything that you just said is great information for us to have on the front end. So pick one of those character traits. I think you said they're not expecting results right away. Oops, they're not expecting. So this is what I would love to see schools do with their team. Sit down with the team and get everybody to just blurt out all the things that they'd like, and censor no one. So no filter. So as Deneen was talking, I should have been writing, and you're making just this massive list of things, and that's column A. And then every item gets, we're going to go 5 whys deep. And you'll get to a point to where this isn't relevant, but you'll see where I'm going in just a second. So they're not expecting results right away. Why is that? Why are they not expecting results right away? Like, what has this parent learned, understood, experienced that places them in a position to where they're not expecting results right away?
Mm-hmm. You want me to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, why, and we're guessing at this, right? But why do you think this parent is in the position that they're in at this moment? Let's try to get into their head.
Right. I think because they understand that process is more important than product. And that, especially for elementary families, like that happens earlier, right? Like, so in Children's House, we want them to focus on process versus product.
So you just did the second why. You kind of cheated, but in a really good way. So you said they understand that process is more important than product. And then my question would have been why? Why do they, how is it that they understand that? And then you said, because, will you repeat that?
Yeah, because of their experience in Children's House, we want them to focus on that process. And it's easier to focus on the process in Children's House than it is for elementary because of the external pressures that they have to perform.
And you just answered the next why. So it's easier to focus on.
I think I'm getting into your brain, maybe. That's
the thing is, this is actually the way that we all naturally think, but we never articulate it. You know, like you sort of say like, oh, they're not expecting results right away. And then there's this psychological momentum that people have that explains it to themselves, but you're not really putting it out to the world. So it inhibits us from being able to connect. And this is great. So they're not expecting results right away. Why? Because they understand that process is more important than product. Why? Because of their experience in Children's House. Now this just became huge for our avatar. This means, hey, we really want people that have a Montessori background. So for our elementary school avatar, they have been through Children's House before. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have people that have come through Children's House. We have a lot of schools that market for elementary students. But what it means is you understand the risk here. And now we get to talk about how to address it. Instead of just like, well, you know, this person is a fit and this person isn't. Now we get to say, okay, this person is not a fit. And we understand why they don't have the context from Children's House. So now we get to create content specifically for them, training programs specifically for them, parent education programs specifically for them. And this is the type of thing that lets you identify not just your avatar, but also the pieces of your avatar that you can create in order to build the ideal family. And one thing that people don't understand is you can create good customers for you. So just because somebody comes to you and say, you're not ideal, go away. Like, that's not the way that any of this works. You can say this family would be ideal if they had this context, this history, this education, etc. And this is the way that we get to it. So we've got, they understand process is more important because of their experience in Children's House. And then the question would be, well, why is it easier in Children's House? And then you say, it's easier to focus on the process in Children's House because, and why is that? You had context, and I started word vomiting.
Yeah. So can I actually put a little plug in there? Because so go back to what you were saying, in that, you know, we're now able to create the customer that we want, because it's leading us into territory that was maybe uncharted before, because maybe enrollment was down or you're not sure, like they seem like a good family, but I don't know. And then like 3 years down the road, you realize that actually it's way more time and effort and you ended up losing them anyway. I think especially for elementary, because this is a conversation that comes up often. Do you welcome new families into your elementary program, or do you not? You know, and what does that look like? And it's a heavily debated topic. But if you have a parent avatar and you understand the qualities of families that can be in elementary, I think you can make decisions based on that. And your decisions will be driven by your own values and making sure that your family values are matching that so that they can be more successful. So you can say yes to people coming into your elementary program that don't have previous Montessori experience, which, how cool would that be? You know, because it's so hard to say, no, sorry, your child is 6 years old and they haven't had any experience, so we can't accept you. That just feels very exclusive.
Yeah, it feels wrong because so many people don't find Montessori soon enough, you know, and if there's a way for us to bridge some of those gaps, like what a service would we be doing to everybody?
Yeah. And what a disappointment, right? Like when I was a parent that had a 6-year-old and like found Montessori just by timing, and now social media is a big thing. And so I can easily find it. Whereas 6 years ago, I couldn't, there wasn't as much stuff out there.
I ran into this with a friend. I've ran into somebody that I haven't seen in years. And she asked about my kids and we were just talking and I mentioned how amazing Montessori's been for us. And she got really excited about it. And then I found out her kids were a little bit older and I found myself doing the like, oh, well, sorry, not right. You missed the boat.
Yeah, and I mean, this literally just came up now, but I feel like if we can do our work on the parent avatar with all of our programs, not just, infant,
Right.
toddler, children's house, but elementary as well, that's just going to give us the tools that we need to be able to find the people that really can benefit from our program. And, it turns out like if you can transform a family, you can say, like maybe this Montessori school down the road is not going to be able to take you, but we will, and you transform them, you have just created your strongest advocate because they're going to talk about you for the rest of their life and their children are going to talk about you for the rest of their life. And like, that's like a key marketing element, as you know. So it just, this whole parent avatar just, it spills into all of your marketing.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I like that you just said, Deneen, is it gives us the opportunity in helping to change people, gives us the opportunity to see what it is that we need to focus on. So one of your other items, let's pretend for a minute that we are done with our 5 whys here. One of your other items was they come into the classroom. And then if we were to dig into this, we're going to find out they come into the classroom, they're exposed to information, they understand, and we would get to a point to where it's actually not, and forgive me for challenging this because I'd actually like to be corrected if I'm wrong. It's not that they physically come into the classroom. A parent can come into the classroom and not care what we're doing. When they come into the classroom, it's the things that they learn and are exposed to. So let's say we have a school that says, hey, we have 2 working parents as an avatar generally. They're very busy. Our socioeconomic status is such that it's really hard for us to get them into the classroom. But if we've drilled into this enough, we know, okay, well, let's create some parent education videos on these 5 topics. If somebody's going to be here and they can't come into the classroom, the next best thing is for them to know these things. And we've only been able to drill down into those because we built our avatar out.
Mm-hmm.
Have I said
well, and
anything to offend you?
No, absolutely not. Maybe it's not they come into the classroom, it's that they're connected to the classroom. And that can look different,
They're connected to the classroom. I love that. And so this is what I would encourage all of our schools to do. If you're watching the recording, spend some time with your stakeholders. And this is really worth the time. And you can do it pretty quickly. Carve out a half hour at lunch and get everybody to just blurt out what it is that's important to them about the avatar, but then ask why. And you have to ask why 5 times. You have to ask why enough for you to run out of answers. You need to stop getting to gold. So, it's easier to focus on process in the children's house. We talked about why. And then as soon as it kind of peters out, then feel free to sort of move on. But you want to dive deep enough into these so that you start to get down to what's really important. And what's interesting is you're not just defining your avatar, you're actually defining yourself. And the 2 that we just came up with, what we found was, oh, this isn't really the avatar as much as it is, this is what's important to us. And that's an interesting mirror to hold up to yourself and realize it might not be that this customer isn't not right for me. It might be that I haven't done everything to empower them to be properly suited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's revealing. Like it kind of lays it all out on the table.
Yeah, it really does. Oh, Heidi showed up. Heidi, we just gave you a plug. Thank you so much for being here. We were talking about your last coaching call. Awesome. So let's go through the questions of the 5 whys. The other thing I wanted to share, can I transition, Deneen? Is this abrupt?
No, absolutely.
Awesome. So this is a marketing tool, and forgive the evil marketer in the room. This is the marketing tool from digitalmarketer.com. This is called our before and after grid. We want to define for ourselves the impact that we have on people. This is critically important in marketing. In so much of what we do, and Montessorians are actually really bad at this. Montessorians sell features. And so you'll say things like, oh we have a multi-age classroom. And as a parent, I hear that and I'm like, ugh. I don't know, I don't care in a lot of ways why that would apply, because I don't understand it enough. And I'm not going to go through the years of education that it would take for me to get there. So don't sell features, sell benefits. And so instead of the multi-age classroom, you could say something to the effect of, we have an environment where your child is going to learn to lead and also going to learn to interface with people that are, different than them on multiple axes. And you'll say that better than I do. But in order to understand the benefits, we need to know our product market fit. So this is the before and after grid. And there's 4 key categories: have, feel, average day, status. The first one, have. What do they have before they have our services? So what does it look like? And for Montessori school, it might be problems, right? So they might, if their kid is going to kindercare, they might have a situation on their hands that doesn't currently challenge their son or daughter. Where I'm getting, like, you want to define sort of the before state in terms of what they have, and then the after state in terms of what they have. And that's the least important of these. They're in order, descending. So have is the least important. If you physically have something or don't physically have something, that's not actually why we buy. The next most important is how they feel. So how does somebody feel before us and after us? And this is really important, because I can tell you as a parent, before I found the Montessori school that my children are going to, I felt kind of incomplete, like scared, because this is such a crucial time in my children's life. And my son was going to a school that I didn't really fully trust or understand. And it just kind of felt like I was doing him a disservice. And that's so uncomfortable every single morning when I would drop him off. And then after finding our school, it was just such a change. Like, I really felt like we were building something together, like there was process and progress. So you wanted to find, and my feelings are ancillary. You wanted to find what it is that your avatar is going to feel before and what they're going to feel after. And this one's really important, because the other thing that we need to be receptive to doing, and again, Montessorians are bad at this. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to beat up on Montessorians today, but I want to be honest. You have to talk about how they feel before. Montessorians are really afraid. And Denis, maybe you can correct me if you're wrong on this, but in the admissions process, it's okay to bring up things like, hey, I know you're scared. I know you're worried. I know this is a really hard decision. I know you might have come from a situation in the past that doesn't entirely serve your son or daughter. Like, we want to address those head on, because they're thinking it, and not bringing it up doesn't change the fact that it's there. Any comment, agreement, or disagreement?
No, I entirely agree with you. And I think it's not only necessary, it's imperative that we do that, because that's empathy. It's like you can really see where the parents are coming from before we even start talking about what we offer. Because I think this is going to be like a Montessori bashing, but like, we go quickly to talking about all of the unique aspects of our program and what we can offer and what we provide. But we forget to sometimes, I'm not going to say everyone does this, but we tend to forget to really look at the human that's coming in right now and what they're carrying with them. And they are very human. They're making a decision for their child, but they are also experiencing shame. They're experiencing uncomfortable feelings, not knowing what the right decision is. Like, all of that stuff is there, even if they're put together when they walk in the door and they sound very direct. So it's so key that we direct our conversation with them in a way that we understand where they're coming from, because Montessori is very foreign, and it brings up very weird feelings. Like, is this a religion? What's going on? This is so different than what I've experienced, and it's weird, and it feels interesting, but I don't know. And I don't also want to feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I should. There's all that stuff inside of there. So I think, it's imperative we do that.
I'm spending time trying to figure out how it is that parents would feel before. And if you don't know, ask. That's the other thing too. Like, you have an entire base of people that are, I promise you, they're dying to have this conversation. They'll be flattered. So pick out the parents that you really like, and parents that have had big transitions too. Like, if you had somebody come in that was just, kind of skeptical, and now they're buying in entirely, go sit him or her down and say, hey, talk to me a little bit about when you started here. Like, what were you feeling? What was the really big fear? And then how did we turn that around? And chances are, you can do that. You can build a system for that, but you just need to know that it's there. So have is the least important going back. Feel is the next most important item. And believe it or not, more important than feel is your average day, because I can make you feel something once, and we all have this buyer's remorse. You feel really good having bought your new computer, Deneen, and then you walk away, and then every single day after that is kind of a pain in the hindquarters. And I can tell you that I hear this a lot from our school members, it's staying in touch with parents on a regular basis, because a parent comes in for a tour, they do the observation, they meet with you, they love everything they're seeing. This room is amazing. I can't believe these children are doing this. They enroll their child, and then they're in a car line, and that's the only interaction they have with their school ever. And that's their average day. And it's really hard to keep them feeling very positive if all they know is you unbuckle and buckle my kid in when we're in car line. And so making sure that you impact what they have on an average day is critically important. And this, I think, from a marketing perspective anyway, is all about parent education. You have to stay in front of them. You have to tell them what you're doing. I think Transparent Classroom is an excellent tool for this. I think some of the videos that we're creating, that Donna's creating for us, that we'll be launching at the end of this year, is excellent for this. But parents need to know what's going on. In my school, actually, Coach Tryon, who's on this call, he sends us these awesome text messages with pictures of my kid playing soccer. And it's huge, because I don't get to see him play, but that impacts my average day. And it's just a small little reinforcement of the decision that I made. Like, hey, you did this really well. So the average day before would be, they don't know what's going on. They're sending their kid to this black box. Like, my son goes into this thing and then he comes out and he's safe, and that's all I know. And then after they join with our school, we're updating them on where they are with the program. The progress is being, updated. I'm not sure how the Transparent Classroom nomenclature is articulated, but anything you'd add to the after, Deneen? Like, what can schools do to make sure that the parents feel touched? And I realize that every single day might be a stretch, but regularly, consistently.
So, I think there's a few avenues that we can take. So one is, yes, information is good. Sending pictures. I actually just got one yesterday of my kindergarten son having another kindergarten buddy do his hair for him, and it was the cutest thing in the whole wide world. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to change the world. Like, compassion and caring for your friend, like, what kindergarten classroom is going to allow that? It was so cool. So of course, then I posted on Facebook, and then I let other people know how amazing my school is, because you just gave me some amazing tools to remember that, and so equipping parents with that is also helpful. But I do think, there's a lot of parents out there that seek some way to support your school, and there has to be ways for that, like articulated ways for them to connect that makes sense for them. So I think I hear often that schools will send out like, hey, we have volunteer opportunities, sign up, and then crickets.
Yeah.
And I think what we have to do is actually invite them individually. So we see something that's unique about them, and we go, I see that you have this really cool quality. I would love if you would come, to a parent coffee and talk about that, talk about your experience or talk about what you can offer. It just
That's so huge.
Yeah, just having ways for them to not just get information from you, but to actually participate, because I think we as schools can take on too much of the responsibility to get parents involved, where we also need parents to be involved, and we have to give them a way to do it that is clear, direct, and easy. Because if it's really hard for them to do it, they're not going to do it, and then the frustration happens and continues.
Well, I love what you said about isolating them because, if you send out a batch and blast email, you really don't feel acknowledged when you're giving. But if somebody comes to you, the teacher at my son's school did this. She found out that my wife is a rabid bibliophile. And so she tasked my wife with bringing in the library books, and Susie got the biggest kick out of it. And it was an 1.5-hour trip with the kids, and they came back with way too many, but she really felt like personally tapped, like, oh, you need me. And I think that, gosh, you just hit the nail on the head there, Deneen. If you can, and this is, I imagine, just has to be a task for the guides, right? Let the guides know this is how we engage with the parents, and this is how you make them sort of like individual mandates, like pick up people's individual skills.
Yeah, and I also think that you could find some parents in your community that are your advocates, and you have transformed them, and they're amazing people, and you can talk to them directly and have them take a look and say, do you know anybody that would be good at this or this, like, can we invite them? And how amazing would it be if they invited the parent, not just coming from the school? Because then you're showing that this is a community, like, we're not just like school family. It's like, we're actually a community for each other, and we're here, and we have different ways that we interact and participate.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. The parent advocates. I'm going to move on to the very last one. Montessorians aren't going to like this at all, but I'm going to stand firmly in front of it with the confidence of a petulant child and say that the psychological literature is very clear people purchase, the number one reason people purchase across all other variables is status. And I think the thing that speaks the most to this is people's cars. If the world really made sense, we'd all be driving a Hyundai Elantra, but we're not, because folks will pay 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20 times X in order to feel a certain way. And I can tell you that this has been true. If you really spend some time thinking about your own psyche, I feel better about myself and my positioning, knowing that my children are going to a school and a system of education that resonates with me personally. It changes how I feel about myself. And that's, and status, I don't necessarily mean social status. It's kind of like psychological positioning with yourself. And so we really want to know for our parents, how is it that we're impacting their status? And we want to speak to that. You probably don't want to speak to it quite directly. This isn't necessarily an overt piece of marketing, but this is subtext. You know, this is where we get to, and Montessorians talk about this a little bit, even if they don't realize they do, because I see a lot of Montessori narrative that speaks to things like, hey, we're changing the world with the education for peace. That is a status-based marketing message. You are assuming that mantle. And that's the type of thing that I think plays very strongly in the before and after grid. And again, I know it's not a fun word to use. We can swap status out for something else. That's just what marketers use. But how is this impacting the way that they view themselves, kind of the psychocybernetics of their own sort of like, you know, individual view of their psyche?
That's interesting. I think you're onto something there. I would definitely change the word. I don't have one right now, but you know, what comes to me is like a sense of purpose, a sense of significance, a sense of creating something that otherwise wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
You know, I think we all have that need to do that somehow. And of course that increases our status, I guess, you know, that would add to it. But I think there's a lot more in that than just status.
Status,
you know,
like
like,
that word, but you're right. There's a semantic change to be made here. And then I think we can get everybody's buy-in. The thing that comes to mind that's probably not right either is ego. Like, how does this impact my ego? But I think that's right up there with status. I don't know. Yeah, if you're live, let us know if you have some ideas. We can play the word finder game. And then if you're watching the recording, email me if you come up with something better than status, and we'll swap it out. This chart is available, by the way, in the Montessori living plan template, which I'll make sure to include as a download from the recordings. I'm gonna move over to avatar creation. Is that okay? And from our live viewers, how are we doing? Is the pace good? Is the content good? Anything that we're glazing over or you want us to spend more time on? And while you're chatting in, I'm going to share my screen. So.
Great.
Sorry?
It says, Thomas says you're doing great.
Hey, thanks.
Are you going to talk about this living, what did you call it? Living plan?
Yeah. So we actually have a course on the living plan if anybody's interested. The living plan is something that I created for my core agency and then modified for Montessorians. So here's the course. It's available to all of our second plane members and up. If you're watching this recording and you're a first plane member, email me and I'll give it to you because I'm awesome. And I really like it when people take advantage of our free education. So you can take the living plan course if you want, but the living plan is, the idea behind it is you need a central repository where you can keep all of your stuff. And this isn't a project management tool because project management tools change too often. The living plan needs to be concrete enough to make sure that you know where you have been. And so it's kind of like, think of it as a marketing journal. And we've got all these little tabs here at the bottom. And I won't go, I'll glaze over them, but just know you can go take the course. But the campaign tab allows you to track things like your mission statement, the work that you're actually doing, what your goals are, and then how you're measuring those goals, and then who the stakeholders are, who's responsible for these things. Outlining your information as a school. What's your soul? What's your story? Where do you come from? A SWOT analysis is, you know, sort of business marketing 101, but you want to know what your strengths are. You want to know what your weaknesses are. You want to know where the opportunities in the future are, and you want to know where the threats are. Your unique selling proposition. This is something that Montessorians, I think, actually have done really well. Who your competitors are. And your competitors aren't just other Montessori schools or even other private schools. Your competitors are nannies, for instance, depending on where you are, or competitive alternatives, or, you know, mom staying home. And then a very clear explanation of your product or service. This is something Montessorians aren't good at. And something that, honestly, we have not done a great job at equipping them with, because there is so much to Montessori. I like to say all the time, KinderCare has nothing to sell but safety and bleach. And what's nice about safety and bleach is I get it. As a parent, I walk in, I'm like, okay, everything's super clean, and my son will be alive.
And convenient.
And convenient, sure, yeah, and maybe cheap, inexpensive, but everything that they sell could be on like a little 3x5 note card placard, like, hey, here we are. And Montessori is, volumes of books, and it's just overwhelming, and a confused mind says no. So we need to get really good at sort of roping people in with small sound bites. And you want to know where those sound bites exist in relation to who the avatar is. So if your avatar is a preschool parent, we want to know, and again, this goes right back into defining what's important to them, but we want to know what's the very first thing I need to say to this person in order to kind of accomplish that goal, like connect those dots. And then of course the avatar sheet, which we're going to go over right now. And then some of the rest of these get really granular. So I'll save them, if you want to define a funnel, here's where we go to manage all of our tasks and content, reporting. And then I just created this tab right now for this exercise, the 5 whys. But that's the living plan. It's available for everybody. When you go to the link, you just go to file and make a copy. And then the idea here is that you share the living plan with everyone and review it once a month. It's not hard. Like, just hop in for 20 minutes and make sure everybody remembers, hey, this is our mission, vision, and values. These are our goals. And if they've changed, update them. The avatar is interesting because you want to name your avatar. And Matt actually did a really good job. This is going to be in the book that we're going to publish at the end of this year. But Matt built an avatar, Brad and Christina Grayson. And he based this off of his school and the people that go to his school. And I'll just read the very first couple of sentences. Brad and Christina Grayson have one child, a 2.5-year-old girl named Harper. They live 10 miles away from the school in a bedroom community. Brad is 38 and Christina's 36. Both parents work full time. Stop. What an amazing picture that's already painted for us from a marketing perspective. The parents are a little bit older in the realm of having a 2.5-year-old, and I'm this age, so I'm not calling that old at all, but they're on the higher end of the socioeconomic spectrum, probably waited a little bit longer. They both work. Like, we now know so much more about this group than if we just said target demographic is, a married couple with a preschooler. Every single time you do anything, if you're writing an email copy, if you're writing a blog, if you're writing ad copy, if you're about to run an event, if you're going to do an open house, revisit your avatar. And then think to yourself, what would appeal to the Graysons? And you don't have to have just one avatar. You'll notice that the living plan has space for 2, and you can copy and paste as many as you want. You probably don't want to go over 3 or 5 because that gets overwhelming and then you're cheating. But you might have 2 really distinct avatars. My favorite example ever, and it's not Montessori based, but my favorite example ever from my business was we were targeting naturopathic physicians for a really long time because we had a program for naturopaths. And what we found after doing a lot of research is there were 2 really distinct types of naturopath. There was kind of the old grizzled veteran who didn't know what the internet was and was afraid of it. And then there was this young, hungry, new grad. And the demographic, there's naturopathic physicians, but the avatars were 2 very, very, very distinct. So we named it Dr. Mike and Dr. Sally. And Dr. Mike had a bunch of money but didn't want to do digital marketing. Dr. Sally had no money, but was into it. Montessori schools have that same thing. You've got the Graysons and the Smiths and the Joneses, and they're different people, but they're ideal to you in different ways. Like maybe there's the people that they're brand new to everything. They have a newborn, and they're those A-type personalities that are researching preschools now. And then you have the people that just found out about Montessori and they have an elementary school, but they're receptive to some amount of change. Whatever it is, we want to use this avatar sheet, and then you want to get into their heads and their minds and their hearts, and you want to know what they watch, what they read, what they're afraid of, what they love, what their goals are. If they could travel anywhere, where they go, like really, and this gets really, really, really sappy. Your avatar should be so complete that you fall in love with this person. And I really kind of mean that. I'm not being facetious. Like, I'm trying to avoid hyperbole, but I believe strongly that if you know somebody well enough, you can't help but to love them in some sense. And we should define these folks so well that when you look at the page, you really care for them. Because that's the only way you can market somebody effectively, is if you care for them. And if you don't care for them yet, then you haven't defined them well enough, because you don't know what it is that they want, like, need, etc. I feel like I just scared Denise away. She's like,
no, and actually, no, it's funny. My computer got mad at me and said disconnected, but now I'm reconnected. No, I think you're absolutely right. And it speaks to what we do already, but we have now a structure for it. And it no longer lives inside of our heads and our hearts. It lives now on digital or paper. Most of us like paper. But you have it there, so now you can share it. And it's a way for you to communicate to your staff, to your marketing team, to your board, to your parents, to everybody, so that you're all kind of speaking from the same document, the same idea, so then it's not just lost in conversations, because again, it's all in our head already, but now we need to just break it out and get it out and communicate it.
When you're going to put two really brilliant Montessorians in the same room, and I promise you that on the surface, they're going to think, if you ask them, how much of this would you agree on? And they say, oh, we'll agree on 80%. And when you dive into it, they're going to disagree on 80%. But you need to get down to the surface and really understand what's going on, or down beneath the surface, excuse me. And Vicki asked a question. She said, do you develop an avatar for each program level? I would say absolutely yes is my knee-jerk reaction. Deneen, any strong opinions there?
No, I think absolutely, because I mean, if you think about where are your openings in your program, where do you allow people to come in and invite them in? And if that's everywhere across the board, you might want to segment where, so for example, it's not just children's house ages, right? You've got 3 to 4 year olds in one bracket, and then the 5 to 6 year olds, which is the end of your children's house. You can create another avatar if you're welcoming families in at that age. So I think you have to be really specific about where your avatars are placed based on what's open in your program. Yeah,
where you're marketing. So you develop an avatar anywhere where you have outbound or inbound communication that's kind of specific to accepting new people. I think that's a great answer. Mm-hmm. How does that land with you, Vicki? Does that sound overwhelming? Agree, disagree?
She's got a few more. Did you see them?
Oh yeah, sorry, I stopped. It seems like a continuation. So an ideal prospective family coming to us with a toddler, and then another with a children's house student, and then with an elementary child, with an adolescent, or do you develop an avatar based on one or two of the ideal families? No, I think Deneen's answer was perfect. Where you are now, if you say, hey, we really need, or we accept, like infant, toddler, primary, but elementary has always been a feeder program and we'll never market for it, and we really don't do any outbound, I would do the first 3 and then maybe not the 4. You'd have the 4th as an internal exercise because I'm sure you'd find value there. But from a marketing perspective, I'd build an avatar for anything that you're actively marketing for. How did I do, Deneen? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think that answer may scare some people because it's like, oh my gosh, we have to constantly do this. But I do think that there's common overarching themes that you're going to see inside of every one of your avatars that you can replicate and then just tweak based on the programs you have. Because again, your avatar should reflect the values of your community. And when you get to that level and you're able to find the people that are also sharing those values, that's really what this process is about.
Absolutely. And my expectation, to be honest with you, you would have probably the same avatar and you're just watching them get older. So, when you start with your infant, if you have an infant program, your infant family, it's the Graysons, but they're just a little bit younger. And so their, thoughts and concerns and pain points and values are a little bit different. And so it might be a copy, paste, and adjust. What's interesting about this is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it brings me to a really good idea. I've been thinking about this for a while, actually. If you have a family that has been with you forever and they maybe just graduated or about to, do a case study on them.
Definitely.
And really, and this, again, can go along with your avatar, but really paint the picture of the before and after in this program, the before and after in this program, because they're going to go through cycles, right? Every transition is going to offer another fear. If you've got families that are moving to toddler to now children's house, and the kids seem so much bigger than toddler to children's house, it brings on a whole nother element of parent concerns or worries or fears. And then from children's house to elementary, there's that too. And so if you can map out that journey for your parents and do this alongside your avatar, you're now creating a marketing story that you can use throughout your entire process. You can kind of pull from it. You could write a bunch of blogs on it. You could do social posts. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of things you can do with that case study.
Yeah, that's you kind of made a point now, Deneen, that I'd want to emphasize a little bit. I think you're going to save time here. It's not going to cost you time, because what's going to happen is you're going to create these avatars. And then anytime you do anything, let's say you write an email, coming up with an email subject line can cost me an hour. It's the most important part of the email in so many ways. But if I have my avatar created and I know who I'm sending this to, and then I just go and I look at their pain points or their concerns, bam, subject line created instantly. So when you're coming up with content schedule, writing an email, writing a blog, trying to figure out what to do for parent education or what event you should show up to next, I think the small amount of time you spend on avatar creation on the front end will feed all of these initiatives for years to come. So I think it's really worth the investment.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the plug in there. You always want to make sure, this is going back to story brand, make sure that when you're writing, you're positioning your customer, your families as the guide. So we're not talking too much about ourselves, right? We're really giving them, we're calling them to action. You know, we're helping them achieve something. So always, always remember that when you're writing it, because I think we can talk so much about what we do and what we offer and how we do it. But what we also do is we offer benefits for families to really get to where they want to be, and to remove the messaging.
That's a great note. They're the hero, and keep them kind of in that pinnacle of the hierarchy.
Yeah, absolutely. Said that he'll be your huckleberry. How would you do the avatar considering the campus situations we have across the K through 8th grade? It opens up slightly different demographics. So if you want to give a little context too, I think that could be helpful, because I think some of our members are in similar situations.
Sure. So Thomas is referring to a school that has a lot of locations. So there's breadth, and the locations are spread across a pretty broad range, I'd say. And then programming that goes all the way up to 8th grade. So there's breadth and depth. And to be honest, my opinion here is this is where effective delegation is going to make a world of difference. I think each of those schools should be tasked with this kind of standalone, because you're right, the demo is different for each one of them. And it's no fun to just get a mandate from the ivory tower saying, here's your avatar, let's go market to these people. Instead, it's, hey, Main Street and 2nd, I think that this is the exercise we'd like to do, and we'd really like your input on who you think these people are. And you're going to have more effective marketing from that. It's harder to do. It's harder to do grassroots. It's why marketing gets cheaper when you have multi-locations, but it's also why franchises all taste the same. So in order to stay unique and consistent and keep your finger to the pulse, I think you need to task, whoever the head of school is at that particular school, depending on how the roles break down. Whoever the stakeholder is, I would task them on a per school basis. Is that an effective answer, Tom? Do you feel like I'm fence sitting here? That works. I'll take that.
Yeah.
One note I wanted to offer, just looking at my notes here, so sorry. I think that it's not inappropriate to share facets of your avatar with your parents, prospects, I mean. And I consider this to be expectation management. And I think this helps in particular with the kindergarten year. Because if somebody's coming in for preschool, it's okay to say, hey, we need to make sure that, obviously, we want to make sure that we're the right fit for you, but we also need to make sure that you're the right fit for us. And here's what makes the ideal family for us. And it's okay, you're going to want to sterilize some of the language, of course, but you can tell them, we want people that are committed to the 3-year cycle for these reasons. Anybody, if you start taking out our kindergartners, you're actually weakening our classroom for the, and it's all right to manage that expectation. I actually think that from a sales perspective, forgive me, that building scarcity into it, anytime the salesperson is kind of saying, hey, this might not be right for you, you'll notice that the buyer always leans in every single time without fail. And so you can use that psychology to your benefit and just say on the front end, hey, this is why this might not be a right fit. This is what our ideal family looks like. And let's talk about each of these points. I think that's really interesting and compelling. I know it's scary, but I would anticipate you having quite a bit of success if it's laid out properly.
Yeah, and that's what Kim mentioned in our first call, and that's what they do. And it has really increased their ability to build a community that they want, because the people there are the people that want to be there. And their call to action. When you say like, well, this is who we are, what we do, and this may or may not be the right fit for you, but you're very clear about that, then people can either, they can make a more informed decision. They leave the guesswork out of it so that they're actually like, well, yeah, absolutely, I want to be a part of this. And if you're really crafty with your message, you're pulling them in a little bit. You're becoming magnetic in, yeah, of course I want to be a part of this, because you're so very different than what anybody else offers. Of course I want to do this. And then of course I'm going to put a plug where you have to make sure that along this process that they also need to continue to show up, because that expectation should be laid from the very beginning, right? Schools, we can't always take everything on to do all of the brunt work. They have to show up and be engaged and participating, because we're not going to parent for you. Like you're also along this journey with us, where we're going to offer you this, but you also need to be present and involved in your child's education.
I love what you said about being crafty with the message, because I absolutely agree. It's, hey, we only want people who want their children to change the world, and then of course every parent's like, well, of course, I want that. And then there's just like, there's almost a challenge to it, like, this is what we're trying to build. Do you want to build this with us? And then you have them acquiesce. And then, like you said, that expectation on the front end, I love, we're not going to parent for you, Denise. I think that's really powerful.
Well, and okay, so I'm a parent of 2 kids, 6 and 2. Like that is there's a lot of shifting going on in parenting, where it's like, there's a lot of shame. So the shame, then we have to like do a lot of things for our kids. And so then you have these helicopter parents, and there's versions of helicopter parents. And then it's parents that just like, nope, I can't do this. And then they just like, and there's so much variation in it. And I think that gives us an opportunity to be really clear about what we expect in this relationship, that this is a 2-way street, that we're going to do this and we need you to do this in order for your child to be successful. Because you can't have your child gain all the benefits of what we're offering if we're not doing this together, if this is a partnership,
I love that. I think that goes a little bit to the before and after grid, the living plan too. You're defining what they have before and after, but you can also put limits on it. You can define what it is that they don't have. Like, hey, we're your parenting partner, but we're not the surrogate parents. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I feel good about the living plan facet of this. Anything else you think we should cover? Have we exhausted this topic yet?
I don't know. I'd be curious to know if anybody else that's here has questions. Maybe did we miss anything? Have we given you enough tools in the 3 calls that we've done for step 2 to be able to do this on your own? And if not, what else could we offer you? Because I don't know, we've probably made this clear enough, but this is such an important part of your process. And it's just going to save you so much time and money and effort, and really build your community in the way that you want. And so, let us know if there's some more things that we can do for you.
And to that point, all of these calls are recorded and available to our entire member base. So if you're in the members area, if you click on live coaching here in the main menu, you'll notice that there's a category for the 12 steps to Montessori marketing. And you can watch all the recordings, and they're broken down categorically. So the very first step was defining your story. This was the story brand. And we're following the same cadence. So our first week is introduction and overview. And then we try to bring in a thought leader for specific implementation. And then we do the examples and hot sheet and workshop, which is what we're on right now for Avatar. And that will continue in that direction unless somebody changes our mind.
Yeah, I put a little like hints that this is also going to follow something that's coming up soon, like a book maybe.
Oh yes, we're writing a book. Almost done, to be honest with you. It's tracking. It'll probably end up being 50,000 words. And the book is going to be more of a workbook than anything else. And in taking a note from Montessori, construct or structure, I'm hoping to make it as self-directed as possible. And so you can take what works and leave what doesn't. And then the 12 steps and the book will hopefully pair very nicely. And a lot of this is, it's repetitious. This is good content to revisit on a regular basis, because your school is going to evolve and your community is going to evolve and people are going to evolve. And so we want to make sure that we have something that's kind of evergreen is the other intention here. Yeah, and really excited. I think so far the feedback has just been phenomenal. I mean, a little overwhelming.
Well, it's really needed, I think so many schools think about marketing in a way that just feels so foreign, because it's just this like weird entity. It's like, who do you trust, who do you go to, who do you give your money to, who do you like, lean into a little bit more. And I think Nido has done such a great job of evolving along with Montessorians. We've been around for 2.5 years now. There's been a learning curve in that process, but you're really getting it, because Montessorians we need this, like this is something that we need it to grow with us as we figure out like what marketing really is for our schools. Because and it's now, now is the time because other schools are doing it. You know, we've got the Goddard schools, the Primrose schools, other schools that come up. They already have all this stuff figured out because it's easy to fit in a model of any marketing agency because you know it's what all of us have been through and gone through and expect. It's easy, but for Montessori, it's so difficult because it's so deep yet so simple, and it's really hard to articulate that. So that's what I love about making sure that we're evolving with Montessori as well.
And to add to that point, we have almost 1,000 member schools, and they're engaged. And so the information that we have and the plan of actions that we're releasing, you know, 2.5 years ago was all just based on what Matt did at one school in Sacramento, 4 locations. It was brilliant, but we've been able to, that evolution has been because our schools have come to us and we're seeing data and we're getting ideas and we're getting input. And so the things that we push out now, I'm really kind of bullish on a lot of them because we're seeing, like, I can tell you, hey, for 30 schools that are all doing this, this is what works. We saw that in our Google ads for the schools that we run Google ads with, the schools that had multiple conversion actions, they didn't just get more leads, they got higher quality leads over a longer period of time. And so if somebody lands on your website and you don't give them the opportunity to do things, download a white paper, understand what the difference between Montessori and traditional education is, which, by the way, is for free on our member resources section. You can download that right now as a First Plane member and put that gated on your site, and you will start generating leads right now today, I promise. Using Calendly, gating your tuition, using the quiz. Like there's so many tools that we know now definitively from a data-driven perspective work, and they help you capture parent attention and then nurture that attention. And so I think if schools start following, you know, it's a template, but it's a template based specifically for Montessorians. So I think if schools start following that, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised at the results.
Yeah. And now we're tapping into the messaging side of it too, which is key, you know? So it's like, yes, all these tools are lovely. We have the skeleton, but what words do we use? And how do we, you know, what points do we highlight? And that's what we're diving into now, which is pretty cool.
I think we have 70 videos ready to go for the parent education, which, a quick teaser, we're going to be releasing a library of parent education videos called the Montessori Minute. And they're awesome. They're just, you know, all the topics that you've always wanted to spend the time to answer. We have a thought leader. She's brilliant. Her name's Donna. She's done that. And we're going to have a library available to our members. And then we also have a collection of website themes that I'm afraid to release because I'm sort of like the tinkerer, but we'll have website themes available to our members to use as well. And that'll be teased in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. Oh, and we lied. Matt's not doing an AMA next week. That's my fault. I misunderstood the schedule. So we'll figure out something to plug in there that's better.
Yeah, for sure. And then after that, that'll be our last coaching call of 2019.
And what's the topic next? What's step 3? Do you remember? I'm going to look it up.
That's 2020. I'm not there yet.
I know. It's too far away. I refuse to believe it's real.
December.
Yes. What are you selling? How to communicate the Montessori value proposition. This is going to be great because I'm not clear on how to do it. So this is going to be one of those where we all learn together. Some schools are, I think, doing it really effectively. We've got Peter Pichet coming on January 9th. He's going to be our guest speaker. If you haven't heard from Peter before, he's absolutely brilliant. Personal friend of Deneen and mine, and phenomenal coach, the Montessori leadership coach. And so he's going to be introducing that topic and helping us figure out exactly how to communicate our value. So please show up to that one if you have the time. That one's going to be huge.
Yeah, and he's seen a lot of schools and helped a lot of heads of schools. So he's got just an array of understanding pulling that through, because it is hard. It's a really challenging thing to figure out. How do we highlight all the really amazing things we do in just 3 bullet points? Like, what do you, that's crazy. Why would we do that? Why can't we just write an essay?
Right. And force parents to read it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everyone who's here live, thank you so much. You really changed the personality of these calls. Like, your contributions are so helpful. And it's nice to know that we're not just like screaming into the wind. So thank you for carving out the time to be here. I know it's hard. And if you're watching the recording, I'm not trying to shame you into showing up live. If you did, I'd like you more. But thank you for watching the recording, and we're grateful to everyone for being Nino members. And if you know a Montessori school that could benefit from our education, please share this with them. But otherwise, we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, that sounds good. See you next week.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay.